Hello, good afternoon. Hamte e hanach egi rajiwira wa inigi nampui. Egi wajapich jina ni karak jampui. Naga karashkone hoe one. Jegukira hihi jine.
Thank you so much, Chef. And good day, good afternoon, buenos dias. I'm Anthea Hartig, and I have the distinct honor of serving as the Elizabeth McMillan Director of your National Museum of American History, and it is an ongoing treat to welcome very special women to our Cooking Up History stage and here in our demonstration kitchen. And it's been about 7 years now since we pioneered Cooking Up History, and about 25 years since the American Food History Project began. This incredible project, led by Paula Johnson and her wonderful team, reflects a remarkable intersectionality of the work we do here, from labor to foodways, thinking about diverse cultural traditions, and that weave of time and place and memory and taste that brings us together around communal kitchens and this one here. So this autumnal series, Conserving Food Cultures, has featured women from across North America, each sharing culinary knowledge, family care, and creative pathways for building stronger communities through food. And it's a special treat to welcome some of our youngest audience members. I love it. There's a whole kind of mini parade of beautiful young people that I walked through. So it's so incredible. Don't go anywhere, you can stay. Yeah, it's going to be really cool, I promise. Today's program, of course, is very special as we welcome Zoe Fess, who gave our blessing, and thank you again, and Elena Terry to the stage. This program is part of a critical effort on behalf of all of us here as we welcome indigenous chefs to our demonstration kitchen and, of course, to the National Museum. And today is remarkable for me in many respects because I get to welcome old friends and from our sister museum, the National Museum of the American Indian. And it's an incredible honor, a humbling one, to partner with our colleagues at NMAI for this program today. It's also a special treat to have with us the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations sponsoring and helping us with this program today. So it's a beautiful trio to welcome our chefs to the stage. At this time, I'd like to again extend my warmest welcomes and invite Michelle Delaney, Dr. Michelle Delaney, the Assistant Director of History and Culture at the National Museum of the American Indian, to say a few words. Thanks again.
Thank you, Anthea. Anthea, thank you so much for having us today, and thank you. I am representing the National Museum of the American Indian today. Our director, Cynthia Chavez-Lamar, extends her warmest greetings to all of you, and we're so happy to be partnering with these organizations today and to welcome Elena and Zoe to the stage. The National Museum of the American Indian is so grateful to be here and to be in this wonderful space. We all want a kitchen like this, don't we? And November is a very special time for us because it is National Native American Heritage Month, the time of year when, as a country, we can celebrate and honor the rich and diverse cultures and traditions of indigenous communities in this country. And food culture is a wonderful gateway to learning more about the cultures and traditions of indigenous communities. We're excited to welcome Elena and Zoe to the museum. Their story is so inspiring. Their hard work and their nonprofit, Wild Bearies, they are ensuring that food cultures and traditions of their community are being preserved and passed on. And our Smithsonian is so committed to providing programming like this throughout the museums. The National American History Museum and also the American Indian Museum, we can learn from collaborations like this, and we become stronger for it, all of us. Now I'd like to introduce our third collaborator, Thomas Pesic, who is Senior Liaison Officer of the North America Office of the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization. Let's hope it's the first of many times we have you with us.
Thanks, and indeed. I was saying backstage that it's not often that my 13-year-old son and 10-year-old daughter think that my work is cool. But this morning when I told them where I would be today, they thought it was very cool. So it's great to be here. And on behalf of the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, in particular, our office here in Washington, which is where I sit, but also our Indigenous Peoples Unit at our headquarters in Rome, Italy, I'd really like to extend our deepest appreciation and thanks to our hosts, the National Museum of American History, as well as our collaborating partners, the National Museum of the American Indian, and our fantastic chefs, Elena, Terry, and Zoe Fess. We're extremely delighted to be here today, and we're very grateful for this work together. We've really been looking forward to this conversation for a variety of reasons, but perhaps most because it's so central to many of the ongoing global dialogues and policy debates and the work that FAO is undertaking currently around the world to help promote more resilient, more equitable, more sustainable agri-food systems. And through FAO's work with Indigenous peoples around the world, we recognize that Indigenous peoples' food and knowledge systems are among the most healthy, nutritious, resilient, sustainable in the world. Yet today, as we all know, Indigenous peoples face unprecedented challenges and threats to their food and knowledge systems, to their culture, their lands, their health, their waters. And so this conversation and this event today could not possibly be more relevant and timely. And again, we're just extremely grateful to our hosts from the Smithsonian Institution for having us, as well as having our chefs here today. And if I could lastly just thank my FAO colleague, Michaela Way, who should really be the person up here on the stage representing FAO and speaking on our behalf, but the COVID-19 virus conspired against that. So unfortunately that couldn't happen, but I still wanted to recognize and thank Michaela for her wonderful work on this program, but also every day. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Thank you all for those opening remarks, and thank you, Zoe, for that blessing. I'm Paula Johnson. I'm the curator of food history here at the National Museum of American History, and today I am your host for this program. Thus, I have housekeeping notes to share with you, and I promise they won't be very long. We do have printouts of the recipes available right here on the stage. And you can also follow along and look out for the QR code on the tables in the plaza. You can actually access the Cooking Up History website where you find a PDF of the recipe. And if you are on social media, and I suspect many of you are, please share and use hashtag Smithsonian Food and hashtag Native American Heritage Month. If you have questions during the program, we're going to be cooking for about 50 minutes, and we'll have about 10 minutes reserved for questions at the end. But if you have a question that you are dying to ask during the program, please just raise your hand, and Alex will find you with a microphone, and you can ask it then. I also want to thank our supporters. Cooking Up History is made possible by Dr. Stephanie Bennett-Smith, board member of our museum, and additional support from Wegmans Food Markets. We're very grateful for that support. And so without further ado, let's get to our guest chefs, Zoe and Elena. Would you please tell us in your own words, introduce yourselves, and just tell us a little bit about yourselves to our audience today.
Sure. Hi, Nipi. Hochonk Rajada, Hahemani Winga Hingade, Nagamaikare Rajada, Elena Terry ga Hingade. So hello, everyone. I can't tell you how excited we were to come today and to share one of these recipes with you. I am the executive chef and founder of a nonprofit organization called Wild Bearies, and we do community educational outreach with our ancestral foods and our indigenous ingredients. And we're blessed to have been able to expand from being a catering organization to also having agriculture, because we're not able to just go to the store and buy what we want all the time if we want authentic ingredients.
So I also have my daughter, Zoe, here with me. And as much as she is a pastry chef apprentice, as much as I would love to have her in the kitchen with me all the time, she also is our organization's seed saver. She does education on sustainability and advocacy and responsible agricultural practices. So it's incredible to see her find her niche in the food system and really get her feet solidly on the ground in what we need to do to preserve, to reclaim, and to educate on our food system. So I'm very excited and blessed to be here. Thank you.
Hanipi everyone. Ho-chan krajra wo hoping ga hingare. Naga maikate rajra Zoe ga hingare. As my mother was saying, I am one of the pastry chef apprentices for Wild Bearies, but I also do a lot of our agricultural systems as well. So a lot of the sources that she cooks with, I help grow.
Yeah. Great. Thank you so much. Can you tell us where you're coming from? You flew in, and where was that from?
So Wild Bearies is based out of Wisconsin Dells, Wisconsin. We do a lot of work in Madison and Dane County, the capital there. So that's where I came from.
I came from the Anishinaabe homelands through Fires Confederacy in northern Michigan. So I am actually a student there. So
Thank you. Thank you so much. Now, please tell us, what will we be making today on the stage? What recipes?
Today we figured we would share with you one of our favorites, the seedy Sasquatch. It's one of our desserts. My favorite ingredient is squash. Yeah, so I developed a recipe that would really highlight it because I feel like, it's such an incredible fruit and beautiful ingredient, and I feel like squash is very underutilized. So I wanted to share a way where people could appreciate it and also some of the other indigenous ingredients that we have.
So tell us about squash, because I know that there are many varieties here, but can you talk about some of the varieties?
Yeah, and I'm just going to go ahead and start cutting this because I'm like, oh my gosh, it's waiting for me. So this is a Hubbard squash, which is incredible with its flesh. It's kind of meatier and a little bit more dense, and I love it.
Oh, your technique is just astonishing. Yeah.
I might have cut one or two of these in my life before. Sometimes they're a little bit harder. This one's a little softer because the skin isn't quite as cured. But when you leave it in the sun and you let it cure at harvest, it is a winter squash, and it will stay preserved for the majority of the winter. I had my grower from the Meskwaki Food Sovereignty Initiative grow out these Pueblo Hubbards, which is just a different variety of this one. And I cooked one of those this past July. She had it in her root cellar, and she had cured the skin, and it was just as incredible as it was fresh. So they have also these unique properties that they self-preserve if you care for them the right way. So I think that's one of the things that we like to use as a basis in the work we do, is how we can highlight the unique properties of these ingredients and really be able to appreciate it in a different way and recognize that we did have these preservation techniques. It does it itself as long as we care for it right. And in kind of mimicking that philosophy in the work that we do, we can really look at ourselves as these seeds, and how we interact with these ingredients is the way we really should be caring for and interacting with each other. So we will definitely, and Zoe can probably appreciate this a little bit, save these seeds for the future. And I'll have to say that, they're also unique, and there's different kinds of squash and different varieties, and you can grow certain ones with others and they won't cross-pollinate. It's an incredibly beautiful plant. And one of the things that we're taught is in growing these plants and saving these seeds, we're honoring what their destiny was meant to be. Like, it was put here to nourish us in a way that only this plant can. And so in being able to utilize its unique preservation qualities or the unique flavors and textures that every variety of here has a little bit different characteristics, it's really honoring what it was given to us to do, and that's just to nourish us. So I don't know, Zoe, if you want to talk a little bit about what we would do with these seeds to save them, to make sure that they're viable, or if we're going to eat some of them, because we are using some of these seeds in the recipe too.
Yeah, so for every squash, you do kind of a similar seed saving process, but it also depends on, like she said, the viability of the seeds. So some seeds aren't used for seed saving, they'll just go straight back to planting. But a lot of the times you can also use it for, like, if we go to beans instead of squash, you would save some seeds for soups and things like that. And then some you would set aside for viability growing. And then others you would just kind of save for, like, ourselves in the long term. But for these squash seeds, you're just going to kind of take off the fleshy parts and then leave the seeds. Don't want to get them wet, but you want to dry them and, like, make sure that they don't have any chance of having mold or anything on them, because then that reduces the viability for the next growing season, and also the viability for it to stay as one of the seeds that you'd keep.
Yeah, so, okay, that was complicated.
Yeah.
So that we have this bowl of seeds right here, and we don't want to get them wet, but we want to spread them out
Yeah, so
and let
you
them
can,
air dry.
yeah, sorry. You can just kind of put them on a
want to?
paper towel.
It's really neat. Like I said, squash is fascinating. But it is almost like they have these little sections, and they're so well preserved in here that you want to separate them from this pulp and then pull them apart and then go through. And we really want to maintain the best genetics. So when Zoe said the viability of these seeds, we want to take the ones that are the largest, the ones that are going to give us the best product, and then the rest we can consume, or like she said, save them for other things. Like we have some of these seeds here that we'll be using. So there's a lot of ways that we can utilize the gifts that this plant gave us and really make sure that we're honoring it by doing this. And it doesn't take too long. And it's really a beautiful process, because these seeds have been kept for us for centuries. You know, we live down the road from an archaeological dig site that confirms Ho-Chunk people over 1,000 years ago had raised garden beds. We weren't just foragers and hunters. We cultivated these plants and we cared for them in certain ways, and we stewarded the land in certain ways. And it's going back to those connections and those practices where we do honor every part of this plant that we can, that really connects us to our ancestors and the struggles that they overcame, and like the beauty of the way they lived their lives, that we can even bring parts of that into our daily practice today by using something like a squash, or by saving these seeds that, you know, it helps us be, in this moment, a good ancestor for the next generation. So hopefully in sharing these practices and this knowledge, Zoe will continue this in perpetuity with her children and her grandchildren. And because of those intentions that were made by our ancestors, we have as much as we do today. So how can we not only use that, but reclaim it for the next generation? So it really is a lot more deep than just saving a seed. It's planting those intentions with those seeds.
And this is a great moment to address the Ho-Chunk squash and the rediscovery of those seeds. Zoe, can you talk about how your organization went about doing that?
Yeah, so I am just an apprentice seed saver. One of my grandmothers is the most amazing farmer, agricultural specialist, and seed savers as well. So hundreds of years ago, when we were on our way to Nebraska, we would kind of hide our seeds in our clothing. And so we have, it's called the Winnebago squash, which is our same tribe.
Zoe said it very kindly. Hundreds of years ago, we hid some seeds in our clothes. The Ho-Chunk people were removed a confirmed 11 times from our homelands of Wisconsin. And during those moves, our ancestors, it's those intentions, those thoughts, and those prayers that they carried with them, sowed the seeds into their clothes to make sure that we would have these foods. If we couldn't be home, we could have the foods that brought us back there. And so at one moment, the Ho-Chunk people were divided and were offered a reservation in Winnebago, Nebraska, where half of our lineage remained on a reservation from one of those moves. And we were looking for these seeds because we have had corn in our communities, and it plays a role in our ceremonies even. And we have had families who have stewarded or cared for certain varieties of corn for hundreds of years. We've known that they've grown these certain corns. And we were thinking, you know, there's these raised garden beds down the road from our house. There had to have been more, right, than just corn. And anybody familiar with the three sisters? Yeah, the corn, the bean, and the squash that grow perfectly together, and they care for each other. There's stories from creation about these three sisters coming to certain tribes. And we were saying there had to have been a squash, right? And of course, I was like, there's a squash out there. I know it. My heart tells me so. And so we actually did. Zoe was doing an internship with her grandmother, Jessica Greendeer, and learning about seeds and the practices of caring for these really sleeping lives is what a seed is. You know, when you plant it, you wake it up, you care for it and you nourish it, and it provides for you because of that. And so we were saying about these seeds, and then a Winnebago squash came, and it was a pure Winnebago squash that had been preserved. So it is a similar variety that you can get in other places, but this one was grown by our people only for centuries. Indigenous, Ho-Chunk, that then recognized as Winnebago. And so when it came back, it was very emotional. And growing that, like, she was on the farm the year that we grew it out, and like I got to go visit those plants and talk to them and interact with them. And it's that feeling that these are our ancestors and they are living beings that have been returned to us, that at one point cared for our people in a way that only they could. They provided that nourishment, not just in nutritional value, but what that nourishment meant. And then we had our Winnebago squash back in Ho-Chunk land, and it was a really big deal for us to have that.
Thank you for sharing that story. It is so moving. And, you know, for those of us who look at seed catalogs all the time, you know, you can see that there is something very similar called a Sibley or a Winnebago squash available in seed catalogs. And so we were talking about this and realizing that the seeds that you have are from this Winnebago squash that was there, and you have that lineage. And that, I think, is just so really important for people to understand how close that is.
And it is different. I mean, even though these varieties might exist in other places, I mean, if you think of what this living being is, some tribes recognize their ancestral seeds with tribal membership so that they will be forever protected with the same rights as any living tribal member would be. That is how crucial they are for us. And to be able to maintain that is not an easy task. Like she's like, oh, I'm a seed saver, but there's so much that has to go into that. It's hand pollination, it's isolation, it's secret gardens to make sure that we are being good ancestors, and that hopefully my great grandchildren will have this squash the same way I enjoyed it. So we are very excited, even with the Hubbard and the beauty of what this squash brings to be able to provide a way to use it and to appreciate it. And hopefully when you create this at home, you'll feel connected to us and to the work that we do, and know that what we're doing as Wild Bearies and in our community is to create a bigger community, because the more I share, the better chance it has to survive. Mm-hmm. And that's the way we look at our educational mission, is the more that we're able to share on our narrative about our food and what our food brings to us, the better chance it will have of being here for generations. Maybe it will be a little bit more protected or honored or appreciated, even if somebody might see it and say that's a decoration. Like, to us, it has a lot of deep meaning. So,
Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you. I know we need to get going on the cooking. So you've cut the squash, and we're having a little TV magic here.
Yes.
Earlier this same day, we cooked this. But you, Elena and Zoe, are going to walk us through the steps of making this custard. So
Yes. So
take it away.
I did cut up a little bit of the Hubbard, and you can roast that if you'd like by flipping it upside down on a piece of parchment or slip mat and roast that at 350 degrees until it's soft, and you'll know because it kind of caves in on itself. Or you can cut it up into chunks and bring it to a boil on the stove and then puree it. What we did was just use like a little hand blender and pureed this cooked squash down into this beautiful mixture here. So what I'm going to do is make a custard out of this. And I'm going to go ahead and put it in this pot, this little sauce pot. So this is 2 cups of the squash puree.
And it's just the squash, no other
This is
ingredients.
just squash,
yet.
yes.
Okay.
And we are really going to, like I said, try and utilize the beauty of this. This is such an incredible, like the Hubbards are really good squash to use.
Can you say why they're particularly good for this custard?
The flesh is just really, it suspends in soup. If you wanted to make a thick soup, I can make, like I said, this custard out of it. It's also will hold its shape if you cube it and add it into soup if you wanted to have it be like a textural component of your soup. It's just a really diverse, multi-used squash. It's good for savory or sweet. So today we're going to use it as a sweet. I added a little bit of coconut milk to that, about a cup. So 2 cups of the squash, a cup of coconut milk. I'm going to add just a little bit of maple syrup to naturally sweeten it and to highlight a little bit of the sweet flavor of the squash. And mix that up. And then I'm adding egg yolks because we are going to make this into a custard and I want it to set a little bit. So I'm going to add that in and get to cooking it down. It takes around like 5 minutes to get it to the thickness that I want, and then we'll cool it.
Well, while we're waiting for that to cook, we can't help but notice that Zoe is busy working over there with the metate. Can you talk a little bit about what you're doing?
Yeah, so the crust for this custard is going to have some blue corn in it. And this blue corn is very, very, very special to us. It is from our friends over in Ute Mountain. And so today I'm just going to be grinding it up and then adding it in with these ingredients over here. And blue corn is one of my favorite ingredients. So
I have a little story about blue corn, believe it or not. No. I was doing a catering at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and at the last minute I thought, I'm going to make some blue corn mush and bring it with berries and stuff. And when the presenter that we were cooking for came in, she said, she was from the Southwest, and she said, I was feeling nervous about this trip. She had written a book and was coming to talk about it. And she said, until I walked into the room, and the first thing I saw was this pan of blue corn mush, which for us, we use for prayer. And she was like, I knew that this is where I was meant to be. And something like where for me, it was, oh, I can make this and bring it. Maybe she'll like it. It was something that helped her connect to home and know that like she was on this right journey. And it's the beauty of food bringing us together like that, even unintentionally, creating these sensical memories or these feelings of comfort, and sometimes you don't even realize it. So it was really neat because this corn actually I was supposed to bring the corn and I forgot the corn. I brought beans and other things, and they had this corn from a presentation that I did during the pandemic for the Museum of Food and Drink, and we sent out food boxes, and this corn was sent out, and they've had it here. And I was like, wait, what? It's like, it's just been waiting for us to come and to get here. So the only thing is, it was supposed to be nixtamalized or turned into hominy for our demonstration, which is perfect because it wasn't, and we were able to now grind it up and use it as flour. So that's what I like. So we better get to work on that over there. Make sure we have enough for these shells.
I just have to add one detail here, is that when you say they had it, we had it, it was actually our kitchen manager, Kathy Fung, who, you know, was attending this program 2 years ago, and she saved this blue corn. She didn't exactly know why, and today she found out why. And so we just had one of those moments of things, again, coming full circle with
it was
this
like the corn
particular
was just waiting, like Kathy cared for that and waited for us to come to use it. So we were like, oh yes, we are definitely going to grind it.
So how is our custard coming? Is it, what do we
It's
look
good.
for?
It's starting to get warm, and as it gets warmer and kind of reaches this temperature of around 160 degrees, it'll get thick because of those egg yolks that we added into it. So I'm just going to keep working on this. I don't know, Zoe, do you want to get working on the crust?
Yes. So I'm going to pull out a handy dandy machine, everyone.
Was there a question? Oh, sorry. Actually, this is a good moment to also ask a little bit more about your organization, Wild Bearies, and the key principle in the understanding of food as medicine. How does that, how do you teach that? How do you incorporate that into people's lives? And also, at the same time, can you talk a little bit about the role of youth education in that circle of food, medicine, youth, education, and health?
Well, that's a quick answer. Just kidding. Just kidding. Yes, of course. I mean, for us, we like to use this theory of the way we traditionally learned, which was through apprenticing or learning by doing these actions. And for us, with Wild Bearies, we started a culinary mentorship program, and it is for people who are overcoming alcohol and other drug abuse issues or emotional traumas through the healing power of our food. And so we chose those parameters because they're broad enough that everybody can relate to it. Unfortunately, nobody is exempt from those two categories in life. And they're also specific enough that people who really are looking to have a place of welcoming without judgment, who are trying to overcome those issues, can come and cook. You know, we all have these spaces that we find in our connection or our niche with the food systems, but regardless of where that space is, we are all consumers. So it's creating these meals and really using the theory, like, food is medicine. It undeniably has nutritional properties that we use in our everyday life. But for us, for me, I can say the medicine is in this, in being able to be in the kitchen with my child, or saving these seeds of squash. You know, it's really, I am not ashamed to say that I was the first wild berry. I was the first one that needed to come back to my community, and food led the way. And so being able to share that beauty with others who might be facing these same obstacles, or like to tell my daughter, I can handle that now, you know, like, give me some of that weight and we'll work through it. And then to create these beautiful meals, you know, you drop boundaries. You become vulnerable. You open up a conversation around the table that you might not normally be able to have. And for me, that's the medicine. That's the healing that you can't quite explain or write down. It's just what happens. And I'm so blessed to, you know, have my children on this journey with me.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Zoe, we notice that you have, tell us.
How did that happen? No.
Tell us what you have put into the blender.
So on the bottom, the green seeds, I have pepita seeds, sunflower seeds, and then the corn that I strained into the flour is currently sitting on top. And then I'm going to add in some maple syrup and grind it up.
Excellent.
I love maple syrup.
That's why I'm watching her so closely. Like, oh, no.
It's true though.
So we use the corn that Zoe was working on, but we also have some yellow cornmeal because we know that sometimes accessibility is difficult, and you can add that as well. This is a seed crust that we really enjoy because there isn't any extra in it, and it's also very allergen friendly, and it's delicious. So this is a really good go-to for cookies, for crusts, for tarts, anything.
I'm going to grind it up so it makes it slightly.
Yeah.
You might need to.
Kathy, we may need a.
Yeah, Kathy, I think we need a
Yes,
spoon.
We need. So I'm just looking at
You
the
usually grind it.
recipe here, and the pepitas, sunflower seeds, blue cornmeal, and then you added some regular cornmeal. Can you talk a little bit about sort of the difference between the blue cornmeal and what you can easily get in a supermarket, and whether that will also work?
Oh, beautiful. Yeah.
Close?
Yeah. I think so. Sometimes we would use this in a food processor and blend the seeds until they're a little bit more powdery, and then add a little bit of the maple syrup to it. But with our equipment here, we're going to blend it up and then add it to the bowl and add a little extra maple syrup. But it is a good example because the seeds kind of hold themselves together when they release their oil, and you blend it up, and the maple syrup is just like this perfect, delicious binder to make a dough out of. So.
And so using just regular cornmeal would be okay? If
Yes.
we're not, okay, great.
And for us, I mean, my mission, there is, and I think we'll talk about it a little bit, this decolonized movement with your food, which is removing things that came after contact and that have significantly affected our overall health as indigenous people over centuries of having to eat this way. But for us, our mission is to get these flavors back into your home. You know, I am okay with saying my own story here, in that I was pre-diabetic, I had high cholesterol, I was borderline everything dangerous, you know, and this was about 5 years ago. And I talked to my kids and I was like, you know, let's just change a little bit. When we go to ceremony and we eat these foods, we feel so incredible. Like it is prayer that we're eating and we're bringing into our lives. And so why wouldn't we want to do that more in our own home? And it was getting ingredients like this cornmeal or more seeds or more squash in, that we decided we would have one meal a week where we had wild rice instead of white rice, or where we had squash instead of a white potato. And it was that small shift of intention and how we wanted to feed ourselves that started changing, like every day, where my kids would eat oatmeal. Now they're eating blue corn mush for breakfast. And I always think it's awesome because I'm like, you do know you're just eating a bowl of corn, right, for breakfast? But that's totally, like, she loves it. And it's great because if you can get these flavors into your house, or you can get familiar with the way the texture is or the uniqueness of them, the more you're going to want it. And like I said, ultimately, the better chance of continuing and being preserved for these ingredients. So if it is going to the store and buying cornmeal or trying it and getting it into your house, that's what I could hope for, is that more people would be utilizing these ingredients and thinking about them in a broader way than what we do right now. So this has gotten pretty thick. I'm just going to transfer it into a bowl and put it in the refrigerator to cool. Oh.
And then I'm just aware of the time here. We may, through our morning magic, just take out this custard. Can I do it holding a microphone? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys know, but chefs are magic. They are.
Yes.
And so Zoe is making the crusts, and hopefully you can see she's putting, well, you say, how much are you putting in each well?
It's about 1 heaping tablespoon.
Okay.
So it's just enough that you want to be able to press it into the sides, and it will hold its shape when you do that. So we're using a muffin tin this time, but like I said, with this base seed crust, you can use tarts, you can make it into cookies. It's just an incredibly diverse base for pastry.
And then in another round of TV magic, here we have, oh look, they're perfect little
How did that
shells.
happen, Kathy?
There. And here you go.
Oh, wow, and this
And
custard's
here's some
perfect.
more,
Yes.
So filling the pastry shells is the next step, which you explained to me, Elena, earlier, that you're going to do it in the really beautiful way.
Yes, but I realize not everybody has pastry bags and incredible tips at home. You can use a spoon also to fill these. It'll work.
That was my question earlier today. What if I use a spoon?
And you can see that when you cook with the egg yolks, it does thicken it up a little bit, and it just gives it a little bit of a different consistency than if you just use plain squash. Different varieties of squash have different hydration levels or levels of water that they'll give off as you cook it. And one of the best characteristics of this Hubbard is that it doesn't have a lot of that. So that's one of the reasons why I like to use it for these sweets, is that it doesn't have a lot of, like, sometimes when you cook a squash, there'll be water on top of it, a significant amount. But Hubbards like to keep their meaty flesh. So it's a really good squash to use for baking. So I'm just going to put a little bit of this in this pastry bag and then put a little bit on the bottom of each of these custard cups.
Gorgeous technique, both of you.
Yes. And so when Zoe puts those in the oven, they're just going to cook until they're like lightly brown, maybe, depending on your oven, 10 to 15 minutes. It doesn't take very long for these at all. Just add a little bit more in. And because we're the Wild Bearies, even though it's spelt like the animal, we're going to decorate this with some fresh berries.
Can you tell us where your name came from?
Yeah.
How did you settle on Wild Bearies for your organization?
Because we do have so many youth in our community, and I was a foster parent for a long time, and seeing the struggles that we have to overcome, I was thinking, what can I do to create a space where my children will know that I made it for them? And a lot of these children that have been in my life were members of the Bear Clan. We both are Eagle Clan, but Zoe has a lot of siblings who I wanted them to know that they meant just as much, that this space was for them. And so we called it Berries after the Bear Clan and for some of my children.
Thank you.
And we're the wild ones. No. Admittedly so. No.
Thank you, Elena, for sharing that story. The intentionality of everything you are doing with food, health, and education is so clear, and really appreciate your sharing all of that with us today. I have a couple of questions for Zoe about the work that you've done with the Native American Student Organization at your university, Northern Michigan University in Marquette. Can you talk
Yes.
about that a little bit?
Of course. So I am going into my senior year at Northern Michigan University, but with the pandemic, I came in halfway through my sophomore year. And one of the first things that drew me to Northern Michigan was the family and the friends that I would be able to have and this good structure. And I would get to know and get to be involved in the association up there. And it has been really amazing. I'm currently one of the OGIMOD, which is one of the leaders on campus. So I get to help provide a space for the incoming freshmen or sophomore transfers, and it is truly great. I love it.
Thank you for doing that work. So, I just have another question for you, Zoe. If do you have any advice for other young people who are perhaps, ready to find a career path or are thinking of possibly getting more involved in food systems and the future?
Yeah, so before COVID, I wasn't on the specific journey that I am on now, but COVID really opened my eyes to what I wanted to do with my life, because I had graduated high school and I had this set in my mind, and then COVID happened. So I actually went to work with my mentor and my grandmother, Jessica Greendeer, on a farm in Minnesota. And it is a farm nonprofit organization that helps teach indigenous youth about growing their own food. So it was a true blessing to be able to work with them every day and to grow our ancestral food. So after I was done there, I decided I wanted to go into school at Northern Michigan University and study environmental studies and sustainability and continue my journey into the food system, and get to where I am today, where I feel comfortable talking about ways that we can change our agricultural systems in the United States to be more sustainable and friendly, because we want to be able to grow our food and we want to be able to grow enough food for everyone in the United States. And so getting to work with these ancestral seeds is amazing.
Thank you. It reminds me of what Tom Pesek was talking about in his opening remarks about Native knowledge and Native systems being systems that many of us, all of us, need to both respect and also adopt in certain ways. So I'm really glad that you're doing that work as a student, and then of course in your organization. So I'm going to open it up for questions in we've got one right away here. There she is. Okay, no, there we go.
I have two questions, and the first one is, as I am aging, I eat a lot of butternut squash because that's available in my grocery 12 months of the year, and we love it, and all of the health benefits of squash. I really believe in squash. As I'm aging with arthritis in my hands, do you have any tips on how to cut through these? Some people say put it in a microwave for 30 seconds. It hasn't helped. And question number two, I'm also very big on composting, and it kills me to throw all of even though it's compost, to put it into back into the compost bin when I would like to do something with it. I don't have the energy to dry and clean all the seeds. Have you ever taken that mash of seeds and skin and pulp and everything, not the pulp, but the stuff around the skin, threw that in a blender and done something with that as a pudding or a bread or something?
We have not. So let me answer your first question.
Okay.
And I was even talking about it earlier with my grandmother, is because I remember having these gigantic cured Hubbard squash that you almost needed a hatchet to get into the skin to separate it. And my grandma would put it in a bag and make a score mark on it. So not cutting all the way through, but just making a little, like a poke or something around, and then hitting it on the ground, and it would break in half. So she would make sure that she kind of marked it so it had a release point, and then she just take it and bang it, because it is difficult and they are hard, and they will break knives, they will wreak havoc in your life, but it's worth it, right? And so the seed and like this beautiful little fruit womb that it rests in, it isn't the most, it's a little bit more stringy, and it has a purpose to preserve those seeds, and so it's this intricate web of different textured meat, and so it is difficult to process it. So it is best just to, if you don't have the energy to save the seeds or to roast them or to use them, to compost, because it will eventually go back to the earth that way. But it is difficult texturally to get that into something that's usable.
Thank you. Other question? Oh, we have one back here.
Hey, hello. My name is Sonia, and thank you so much for the presentation. It was wonderful. And it's more than a question; it's a comment. I am originally from the Andes, from Ecuador, and I am married with a Wisconsin guy. So, so we have the black corn in the Andes, and I didn't like squash until I met my husband. So he taught me how to make wonderful soups from Wisconsin and everything. And now I'm learning the nutritious value of squash. But also, you mentioned something important, that I want also my children to know what is the culture of the food. So, and it is kind of complicated because I am originally from Ecuador, and my husband is from here, so he is in charge to teach his culture, and I am in charge to teach my culture. So whenever I can, yesterday we celebrate the Dia de los Muertos, and we used to use this kind of porridge made with corn, black corn, and mixed with some of the spices you already did, with berries, with blackberries. So we commemorate them with these beverage. So it has been a wonderful to know that I'm doing also a good job following your steps. Thank you.
That's the beauty of food, right? Thank you for that. It's this incredible vessel that can transport you to different times and to different places, and it can elicit these sensical, full body memories of comfort, and connection. And it's knowing, like, I can imagine how incredible that black corn must be. Like, one day, hopefully, goals. But, it's appreciating that, and that, like, yes, we are ho-chunks from Wisconsin, but everybody has those connections to their food and their culture and their ancestors, and it's how you choose to use that in your life that can make a difference. It's putting in motion those ripples that hopefully will turn into waves of change and of reclamation, of equity and inclusion, and being able to use that through a bite of food, and to say that no matter what, where we come from or what we look like or what our history is, we all can sit down at the table and share a meal together. And it's how we choose to do that.
Well, we have the finished product here. It's gorgeous. Thank you for so much. I have another question, which is there a cookbook in your future? Because we kind of need it. Yes.
We're working on one. Yes. It's something, like Zoe had mentioned, she's a pastry chef apprentice. Wild Bearies has 5 chef apprentices right now in our program that are leaders in not only our catering operations or programming that happens, but also in the community, and saying that we are healing, however small that may be. Like, I'm trying to do a little better, and that cookbook that we're working on is focused a little bit more on our pastries and enjoying the sweetness of life, and really being able to say that we're not exclusive to a soup, or it doesn't just have to be wild rice or bison, that there's beauty in everything that surrounds us. And like, what can we do to help these incredible ingredients fulfill their destiny and be appreciated in a way that we appreciate them? So hopefully in the horizon, we'll do that. No, we'll be able to have that done sometime in the next year.
Thank you, and because then we will invite you back, and there will be books back there to sign, and we will all benefit from your wisdom as we have here today. So thank you both. Are there any other questions before there's a few parting comments that I have to make. To remind you,
there's one.
There you go.
Hi.
Okay. Okay.
And we do have some recipes. We were able to have this incredible collaboration with FAO and Slow Foods, and we were able to put some indigenous ingredients and recipes together with some really celebrated chefs. So I know that that's out there. And
so,
Tom? No. Perfect. Yes.
Okay, we'll have a little chat about that when this is over. And just for those of you who didn't hear the question, culinary librarian extraordinaire Connie has asked the question about whether the National Museum of the American Indian has a cookbook. And yes, Michelle says Mitzi Tom cookbook, and you can get it up at the American Indian Museum and online. And Mitsitam, M-I-T-S-I-T-A-M, which is the name of the fantastic restaurant at that museum. So, okay, question.
Hi, thank you so much. This is a phenomenal talk. I just have a couple of minutes because I work here and I'm on my lunch break, so I'm so sorry. A big question in short time. I studied very similar things to you in school. I graduated about a year ago, so it's amazing to see you, and I'm so excited to just see this, in the museum setting, especially coming from someone as, experienced as you are. Something I have always wondered about among learning about food studies and food justice a lot throughout my education that I've found different answers to, and I would love to hear your input on it, is grappling with eating locally and working on decolonizing our food, but also maintaining that cultural preservation through sharing. Where is this line between we want to spread these foods and share these flavors, especially because they share the story and are so connected and culturally necessary to preserve? But how do we do that in a way that isn't necessarily relying perhaps on our same systems of international food scales that are blowing so many local food systems completely out of whack and becoming inaccessible to the people that originally used them? That's a huge question, and I'm so sorry I only have like 2 minutes, but
I think it is being able to share it with our narrative and to be able to preserve and protect. We do have secret gardens where we grow out these ancestral ingredients, and we do have protected spaces that they grow in. And I think it's the understanding that we are wanting to share, but the only way we have these foods today is because they were so highly protected and kept secret. And there are certain things that we need to maintain that level of respect for so that they can continue. We have a bean. So the bean came home to us as Ho-Chunk people as well recently. And that's a whole other story. That's one of the beans, but that's not our Ho-Chunk bean. Yeah. That's when I can bring her out. The Ho-Chunk bean is still being multiplied. And slow food, if you can even understand, we got 20 of those original Ho-Chunk beans returned to us, and it will take at least 5 to 7 years before I even have them in my hand to start growing. So hopefully, Zoe's children will be able to actually eat that bean. And so there are certain foods that we very highly protect, and I'm very transparent about that. And the beauty of us being able to have our organization and the work that we do is that we are able to share things that we have a little bit more in plenty with the understanding that we respectfully have to also preserve some of those exclusively. And hopefully one day we will be able to share those.
And along with that, it is also just sourcing from people like Ute Mountain who can provide
A production level
production.
of some of those ingredients. Yeah, and it's advocating and using. We do live in a region of organic valley in Wisconsin, and it's having individual farm partnerships for production level crops where that we do a lot of the advocacy for agriculture and sustainability in a greater community than just the indigenous community as well. Thank you. Yes, thank you.
Thank you all. The recipes are available here. We also have a free cookbook from a previous event on Melissa's produce for peppers. So take one if you'd like. There is also a table from the UN FAO in the back with some wonderful things if you would like to take them home with you. Do sign up for our newsletter. It's also here on the stage to learn about our food history programming for 2023, because we're already starting to think about that, of course. And if you would, please fill out our survey and comment cards and let us know your thoughts about this program. And, you know, if you want to, tell us what you'd like to see next year. We always want to know. And I want to take this moment to thank our collaborators, to Tom and the UNFAO, to Michaela, for all the work that she did on this. We hope we can work together again soon. And Michelle, thank you for coming over from the National Museum of the American Indian. It means a lot. We are the food team. Like food itself, we are very interested in coming together. And so we hope that we can work together again very soon. And then last but not least, thank you, Elena and Zoe, for this amazing, amazing lesson. I mean, it was a beautiful cooking demonstration, but the lessons that you shared and the values that you conveyed are going to stay with us for a very long time until you come back and tell us again and tell us some more. So thank you.
Thank you.